Hi everyone, my name is Joel Salomon. I'm the restoration director here and president at the Rockhill Trolley Museum here at Rockhill Furnace. The car we're looking at here is a Chicago Aurora and Elgin built car from 1909. It was built by the Coleman Car Company and it ran on the CA&E its entire life until 1957. It was actually built as the Aurora, Elgin, and Chicago car 315. That line reorganized in 1922, I believe. And then the line became known as the Chicago Aurora and Elgin. The car ran until 1957 on the last day of service. It was built with wooden construction. As you can see, the car could attain speeds of 80 miles an hour. They could also couple 3, 4, 5, 6 car trains with these Van Dorn couplers here. And one motorman would control all the cars with multiple unit control. About 2004, we actually started a restoration program on this car. And this platform especially was in very poor condition. If you look really closely, you can see they made a splice here. So instead of replacing that whole post, we just spliced it here and took out the rotted section here. Then we decided to take the car back to its original condition in 1909, which actually includes reinstalling the exterior stained glass windows here. Museum members in the beginning of the founding of the museum in 1960 actually acquired stained glass from the Wheaton shops when we acquired the car, and with the eventual goal of someday reinstalling those windows. So that is actually happening right now. So we had to make the window frames for the exterior stained glass and numerous small changes in the car. Of course, the paint is the big change. The car is right now in its original 1909 colors. We found samples of this color up underneath the clerestory windows, which had been undisturbed for many decades. Some other differences with the car: this windowsill, back in the CA&E days, they had one long continuous windowsill, so we had to replace that. New siding had to be installed here between the windows. All this new trim had to be refigured out because that was all long gone when we acquired the car and started working on it. What we're looking at now is the car was built with a restroom inside, which would have been on the other side of the car. And these will have stained glass windows inside them as well, which we have those now. In the 1940s, they took the bathrooms out of this car, and we had to get a new partition wall for the bathroom, which we'll see in a couple minutes when we go inside the car. They actually put passenger seating inside the car so that they could increase the carrying capacity and they didn't need the bathrooms anymore. The car actually has double sash because in Chicago, of course, it's very cold, so they wanted to economize on the heat. The car has baseboard heating inside the car along the length here, so they had double sash on this car. So we actually had to make new mahogany window frames for the car because in the later days of the CA&E, they just used any kind of wood on the car. We're restoring the car with all varnish, and it would have been a rainbow of different colors of wood, so we just built a whole new sash on the exterior sash, I should say, of mahogany window frames. The lettering that we can see up there, one of our members who also volunteers quite a bit at the Baltimore Streetcar Museum, but he is helping us with this project immensely. He's made the lettering for the car. It'll start at that end, say Aurora, Elgin, and Chicago, and that'll be lettered in gold leaf, and then of course the whole car will get a coat of varnish to preserve all that. What we're looking at now is the builder's photo of the car, and we acquired this through our friends at the Pennsylvania Trolley Museum because they had the original negative in their archive collection. This has been invaluable in our restoration efforts here because it shows us how we have to backdate the car and come up with all the trim moldings. This piece of molding that is on top of the windowsill is one continuous piece of wood, steam bent in layers, and it's about 14 feet long. So it goes from this end all the way up over the arch to that end. So that's one piece of continuous wood. The windowsills, things like that, we all had to re-engineer and manufacture here to bring the car back to as close as 1909 condition as possible. Now is the control cabinets. There's one on each end of the car. This end of the car has the third rail cutout switch, and the conductor or the motorman would actually change this switch over when they were underway. The conductor's job was to stand out in the train door and raise and or lower the trolley pole depending on what direction they were going to, changing into third rail or changing out of third rail. They would do that under speed while the car was in motion in all kinds of weather, day, night, rain, snow. So that had to be a challenging thing. But the third rail then would be engaged by pushing this big knife switch up into there, and then the trolley poles would become disabled, and the third rail shoes on the trucks of the car would become powered, and the car would continue underway there. Motor cutout switches here, canopy light switches, controller switch, things like that. The air compressor switches on the other end of the car. The controller for this car, this is what it was. It had a dead man control system, and this actually takes a fair amount of force. This is the reverse key, of course. To hold this down all day, there was no foot pedal or anything, takes a fair amount of force, but it must have been quite a thrill to have 5 or 6 cars of these coupled together and be the motorman on all the cars with a new control. So what we're looking at now is the smoker section of the coach, which was in a fire sometime, because when we started stripping all this blue paint off the car, which this entire coach when we got in 1963 was blue. There's little remnants of blue here and there that we haven't gotten to yet. Under the seat or the windowsills there, some blue, some of the tack strip on the stained glass window inside is blue yet. That all has to be removed yet because this whole car will be varnished. But what we found underneath some of that blue paint is plywood panels. In the 1940s, this car was in a fire sometime, and instead of replacing it with mahogany paneling, they just put plywood in. And of course the inlay is missing. So all of these panels that you see missing here are getting new paneling made, new plywood made with a mahogany veneer. And you can see an example of that right here. The back of the cabinet here for the control cabinet on the platform behind the motorman was all plywood at one time. So one of our volunteers put all mahogany veneer on that, and that's ready for refinishing now there. So what Carl is doing, our volunteer, who also volunteers at the Baltimore Streetcar Museum, he is masking up the bulkheads for me because they get cream as well, and they will get this pattern right here. This was the test pattern that we approved yesterday, and that will be gold leaf and the green paint in the dark areas, and that will get put up on the bulkheads, all 4 bulkheads of the car, and then that will be gold leaf, as I said. What we're looking at here is the restroom partition, and this piece was not in the car when we acquired it. Thankfully, our founding members, when they acquired this car in 1963, they acquired these partitions from the Wheaton shops, and then our volunteers installed them. It's interesting to note, you see the maple inlay throughout all the car in the passenger section. It is not in the bathroom section here. So they built the cars very ornately, but they also conserved financial costs when they could. They didn't see the need to put the maple inlay in the bathroom. The bathroom, the fixtures of course were long gone. There was actually a passenger seat in here. When you look underneath the car, the hole is still there in the main floor. This is a subfloor that was installed previously. And of course back in the day, you know what happened to the waste from the restrooms of the moving trains, and hence the reason why the sign says do not flush toilet while in train station. Right now our volunteers are painting the ceiling panels. They made new lower ceiling panels as well as new upper ceiling panels, and in a couple of weeks we are going to have a contractor come in who we actually found on Facebook of all places, and she will be applying the gold leaf and paint design work that goes on all of the ceiling panels there. What we're looking at now is the control stand and controller for this car, C80 or AENC 315. This must have been quite a job to run the car because there's a reverse key. The motorman had a control that had to press this dead man handle down and keep it down as he had notched up through the points of the car. And letting the dead man up would cut the traction power to the motors, but the car would continue to roll. But still, you'd have to go back, start over. But to hold this dead man button down, actually for 8 hours, you must have developed a strong left hand over the years of doing this. What we're looking at now is some of the original 1909 ceiling panels that we took down from the car. You can see they're in pretty poor condition, delaminating, things like that. So we decided to build new. And to our surprise, when we took this big piece of trim off here, this is where the car cards would go on the lower half of the panel, the car card racks. And then on the upper part, they had big 5-6 inches pieces of trim. So we were very shocked to find this is original 1909 cream colored paint and the original 1909 gold leaf and paintwork, which was very helpful in establishing the patterning of how to do these new panels when we had them ready to go. What we're looking at now, this is our 315 parts rack here that some of our volunteers have refurbished and are waiting to install in the car. The brass pieces are the baggage racks that would go above the double sets of windows. Quite a difference in size for baggage racks for today's passengers, things like that. And then all these pieces here, you can see the top piece are the stained glass pieces separated with cardboard, and that's what will go in the exterior of the car as soon as we're ready to install them. What we're looking at here are parts of the heater covers, these gold pieces that we determined to be the original color of the heaters. We'll go over the heaters on the baseboard of the car, and then those black pieces would go between the seats as kind of a double safety protection for people to not touch the actual heater part here. Looking at now, one of our volunteers over one winter, about two winters ago, took the seat frames home, and he disassembled each and every piece, blasted them in his blast cabinet in his basement at home, researched the paint colors, and determined that we were painted this red color, and the arms where the back seats of the seats will go were this gold color. Now this car is an interurban car, so they were quite fancy, so they had armrests. So he also refinished the armrests here, and this maple inlay may look a little bit new because it is. Some of the maple inlay over the years had fallen out, things like that, so he actually found someone for I think $20 a seat that would put all this new maple inlay in here. And then he refinished them in his basement and brought them up. And you can see some of these will go on the sides of the seats like that. And so the passengers have a nice comfortable ride to their destination. What we're looking at right now are actually all the seat backs from the car, and these will all need to be recovered by a professional upholsterer. We actually have the material, a leatherette material for the car, but we will be needing someone to actually do the work here to recover the seats. So funding, of course, is always in need of the car to keep it going. So if you like seats and you want to contribute towards seats, that'd be great, and we certainly appreciate your support. What we're looking at now is one of the clerestory pieces of windows, and you can see the color of the cars on the outside of the car. And then, of course, inside is all varnished, and we had to get some new pieces of milk glass because some of the old pieces were cracked, destroyed, different pattern over the years, things like that. And when we started working on this car, the CA&E, instead of recanvassing the car, they just kept putting tar on the roof of the car, and there were multiple layers of tar on the car that took quite a bit of scraping and to get down to this point here. But the car looks spectacular with these in the upper clerestory and the light shining through the stained glass here. What we're looking at here, these are pieces that will go over the double windows inside the car, basically hiding the roller mechanisms for the window shades so that the passengers won't see them. But these have all been refinished and they're ready for installation in the car as well. We're looking at all the windows for the Chicago Interurban 315 here, and one of our volunteers took these home over the past couple of winters, stripped each window out, repaired them. Some of them needed new brass plates on the bottom here to fit into the ratchet straps on the car, and then he painted them on the outside green, and then the interior sash will have varnish on both sides. The exterior sash, of course, is green on the outside and then varnished on the inside. What we're looking at here is one of the restored lamp fixtures here. This would go up into the ceiling like this, and then the socket plate would be in here with 5 bulbs and then a big glass globe, which we still are searching for because the car was missing them when we acquired it. The globe has to fit inside this diameter here. So this will go up into the car, as I said, like this, and then there's 3 of them that illuminate the car this way.